In this video, we will review the modes of assessment. Let us recall that assessment is a systematic process of documenting students' empirical data as a result of student learning and experiences, usually in measurable terms. When we document data, it means that we gather information about them, we ask for their names, about their background, and test them in order for us this empirical data. Empirical data means these are the true data based on test scores of the students as a result of their educational experiences. And usually these are in measurable terms. So for example, the knowledge as converted into test scores, the skills, performances, outputs, projects, behaviors. So these are the usual things that we document about the student. When we document, we are using a specific tool. In assessment, we use test because test is a tool or method designed to obtain information. So test is planned in advance because it says they're designed. So we have to think of it, why we have to get this information and how we are going to get this information. Because a specific information may require a specific tool because not all tests are applicable to all information that we want to get. The tool or method must be appropriate to the type of information you want to get. Test has a wide variety of techniques to be utilized to obtain information. Test is not only limited to paper and pencil tests, so it's not limited to quiz or examination. Though it's one of the variety of techniques like paper and pencil test, you can also have oral questioning. You can get information or you can get data from students from oral questioning, from performance test. You can document their performances, their outputs through your observations, even from self-reports. Students will write their reflection paper, their narrative report. Autobiography is an example of self-report, and we can get information about who are they from autobiography. Aside from that is we ask them to create products, and even in group dynamics. Now, as a teacher, we facilitate by group activities, and we are going to write our observations, or we are going to remember our observations, who are potential leaders, who are participating in group dynamics, and who are not participating. So there are variety of methods. So it's not limited to paper and pencil test. So these are the modes of assessment that we will discuss in this video into details. The first one is traditional assessment, followed by alternative assessment. The third one is portfolio assessment. Let us define them into details. When we say traditional assessment, it refers to paper and pencil test that will accept one correct answer. So usually you cannot debate on the teacher if that is the correct answer or not. If your answer is not the same with the answer key, usually you won't get the correct answer. And students will be answer or will express their answer by selecting an answer or from the options, or they are going to supply the appropriate answer. It's like fill in the blanks. By the way, let me give you a heads up that when we say traditional, it doesn't mean old way or old school, because sometimes in layman's term, we use traditional as a way to express the old fashioned way. But here in assessment, again, it refers to paper and pen test that accepts one correct answer. The second mode of assessment is the alternative assessment. It refers to other methods aside from objective paper and pencil test. We are aware that there are competencies that cannot be measured by traditional assessment. So for example, if your objective is the students would be able to differentiate traditional and alternative assessment. So you cannot test that one by asking them to answer multiple choice. So you might use essay or you might use oral questioning. Here in alternative assessment, students will create or perform to respond and answer. The third mode of assessment is the portfolio assessment. Here is the collection of students' output. So this output may be coming from the results of traditional assessment or from alternative assessments. We are going to compile the outputs from traditional and alternative assessment. And when we compile it, we arrange it, we make it presentable, and we make exhibit out of it. And that is portfolio assessment. And this is considered to be a dynamic process of assessing students because students may undergo multiple processes different from each other or unique from each other, but at the end, they will be able to produce an equally good product. Traditional assessment is not an old fashioned way. So, here in assessment, it refers to the use of objective paper and pencil test or paper and pen test, and it usually accepts one correct answer. And there are actually classifications of traditional assessment. The first classification is known as objective supply, and this may include identification, completion test, enumeration, labeling test, closed test. And here, there are no options. So the learner or the task taker must provide his own answers. One problem of this objective supply is bluffing. If they don't know what is the correct answer, they might write the name of their classmates or the name of their uncle, the name of their neighbor, the name of their dog. Another classification is objective selection. So from the word select, so there are options. Examples for this may include multiple choice, matching type, true or false, or this is also known as alternate exam or binary test, and even teachers would consider this as dichotomous test. So these are exams that has two options like right or wrong, legal or illegal, yes or no. And another thing or another example is rearrangement, or it refers to the sequencing of events. Here again, there are options, and one problem here is guessing, especially if they don't know what is the correct answer. They are going to bet on a particular option. Some students would rely their particular rituals, and I did this when I was still in elementary. We call this bintot bintot. Are you familiar with that process, bintot bintot? But the probability of getting the correct answer is very low. So here are the advantages and disadvantages of traditional assessment. First advantage, it can cover a lot of material. It can cover a lot of topics. For example, identification. Even if you have 5 chapters, you can ask identification for those 5 chapters. Or you can make fill in the blanks, multiple choice. True or false, you can make a lot of true or false items, even if you have 5 chapters, 6 chapters, even the whole book. Another advantage is it is considered to be fair because students will be answering the same sets of questions. Another advantage of traditional assessment, this is very effective in assessing declarative knowledge of content. These are the basic information. Sometimes it's good for those students who are having good memories. So they can easily remember and they can answer it immediately. So this is very good for declarative knowledge. And this is very easy to score. You can even ask help from your student because you just have to make an answer key. And one good thing about traditional assessment is you can check this together with your students. After the exam or after the test, you can ask them to exchange their papers, write corrected by. You're actually hitting two birds in one stone. You are checking the test paper and you are explaining to them why is it that in this item it is the correct answer and why is it that it is not the correct answer. And this is also a good opportunity for students to ask for clarifications and misconceptions. And it is a very nice experience to see students having their aha moments. So it's like a very nice experience. Disadvantage for this one, this is very time consuming to prepare, especially if you are making multiple choice. No? It is difficult to make distractors, jokers, or these are the wrong answers because you have to make other options plausible, attractive, because it's not a good item if it is obviously correct or obviously wrong. So you have to make other options closely related to the correct answer. Another thing is easy for students to cheat, guess, or bluff. Well, that is one side that we don't like teachers. But for some students, that is one thing that they will enjoy, especially in checking. You would see them, they would be smiling. There would be laughter, especially in the bluffing or in the guessing. For cheating, of course, they will not react on that. And sometimes this will encourage rote memory than deep understanding. And this is less effective in assessing procedural knowledge and creative thinking. Well, you can still ask procedural knowledge. Like, so for example, in multiple choice, you would ask, what is the second step? What is the third step? This one, construction of good higher level recognition items is difficult. It is so difficult to make a difficult test because sometimes it is obviously very easy. No? And teachers tend to experience a little sort of difficulty that we want to make a little bit challenging exam for the students. And making good higher recognition items is difficult to make. So sometimes it takes practice, it takes patience, and it takes wisdom and experience for you to develop good exam. So again, these are the advantages and disadvantages of traditional assessment. In alternative assessment, it will require students to create or perform a response. And this measures the skills or competence directly. And this is also known as performance test. Example for this may include solving or in mathematics problem solving. Another would be poem writing or poem writing. Reporting is one example for alternative assessment. Essay in alternative assessment. So there are written response in alternative assessment. Another thing would be role play, art class, art activities, making outline, sports activity, PE. You cannot measure PE in traditional assessment. Laboratory works in science classes, you cannot measure that one in traditional assessment. So that is why alternative is very important. So we will have an alternate exam for the competencies that we cannot measure using traditional assessment. So alternative assessment, again, it requires students to create or perform a response, and it can assess targets that can't be measured by traditional assessment. So my previous examples a while ago, those things cannot be measured by traditional assessment. And again, this is also known as performance test because it may accept multiple answers. So that is also one difference from traditional assessment and alternative assessment. This one may accept multiple answers, but the multiple answers is subject to criteria, subject to rubrics. So these multiple answers should fit into the criteria that the teacher will set for you to get good score or higher scores. And it measures the skills directly because it measures application of knowledge and skills immediately. So this alternative assessment will not only assess your knowledge, but also your skills. And under alternative assessment, we have this specific type of assessment. We call this one as performance-based assessment. In Bisaya, we can interpret this one as paggrado base sa performance, or your grades is based on the actual performance. And in performance-based assessment, students are required to do actual demonstration of skills. So it's like live demonstration. So you cannot pre-record your demonstration. You have to do it in front of your teacher. And you have a very limited time to perform it. So for example, 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So you have to grab that particular opportunity when you are in front of your teacher, because there are instances that your teacher may not give you second chances. Another thing is it requires students to create a product. This one, you can bring this at home. You can do it at home. And probably you will be given a lot of time to complete the task. One category of performance based assessment is known as process oriented, meaning there is an actual presentation or live presentation. There are no expected tangible and visible output. Sige. Another category of performance based assessment is known as product oriented, meaning there are tangible and visible output at the end. So there is something that you would see or something that you can touch after the activity. This is something that the students will produce. Of course, there are activities that there are output at the end, and you may require students to do it in front. No, I mean the students will do it in school. No, in a certain period of time. Then at the end of the activity, there is a product. Say, for example, cooking activity. No, there are observable skills that you would recognize while they are still preparing the food, and at the end there is a product which is the food. Portfolio assessment is gathering of multiple indicators of student progress. So multiple indicators. So this is not limited to the test scores that we are going to include. And it shows cumulative achievement over time. Cumulative means you are going to add up all the activities and you will compile it. These activities are coming from the very first day of class up to the last activity. So you are going to compile it and you are going to arrange it. And then we will evaluate if the things that you have collected over time from the first day of class up to the last activity shows progress. And it can showcase an ongoing curriculum and what has been done. So for teachers, this is very good because you can showcase what you are doing and what activities you are giving to your students. And this is a very good proof that you are actually implementing the curriculum. So you are not just talking or you are not just asking the students to transfer books to their notebooks. So there are really outputs that you are doing. And it can exhibit students' effort, growth, progress, and achievements. Of course, you can see this based on the finished portfolio. And portfolio assessment, it will show evidence that students and teachers' goals are met, meaning teachers are delivering the competencies stated and students are meeting the goals as well. And this is a good proof of completion across the curriculum. So you are really implementing the curriculum. And for parents, they are given insight to what their child is doing in school. So this is aha moments for the parents. And it promotes student self reflection because the students who are making the portfolio will collect and will select and he will arrange, no, the outputs, and it will also promote reflection and creative thinking because in every activity the learner must write a reflection. So what are the impact of these activities to his personal life, to his learning experiences? And as a teacher, we must ask the students to reflect because that is very important that we need to go back to this is like a photo album. When you look at the photo album, there are experiences that will reminisce. There are emotions that will bring back. So in portfolio assessment, this is time consuming to score. For teachers, this is really time consuming because you have to scrutinize the portfolio of the student. And this is time consuming to make. No, I agree with this. This is very time consuming and it may require a storage space. For teachers, no, this is very true that we need a lot of space for this portfolio because after checking, some students may not get their portfolio because usually portfolio will be collected at the end of the school year, and that is the time that students will be submitting their portfolio. And after they submit their portfolio, some of them may not be interested to get back their portfolio. For some teachers, this may require a storage space, and whether you like it or not, this is a little bit harder to score fairly. No, because there are different designs, there are different activities included by the learners. Of course, you can be guided using a rubric. And as teachers, we need to prepare rubrics in advance. We have to inform the students what will be our criteria so that the students will try to prepare their portfolio based on the criteria so that they will not assume on how they will be graded. And I have compared the traditional assessment, alternative assessment, and portfolio assessment. In traditional assessment, this is teacher structured or this is teacher dominated. Most of the teachers, he is in control of this one, especially in exam. So the students will just respond. And usually this is contrived situation, meaning the situations in exam or in multiple choice, these are particularly fabricated situations. So you will just assume that this is the reality. And students would be selecting or supplying an answer. We have discussed that one. And this shows indirect evidence. Because you cannot say that if the student got a good score, they really learned that particular lesson. And if they got a low score, it doesn't mean that they did not learn something, because you have to consider also the type of test that was given by the teacher. So for example, you have a student, no, who got zero in your exam. Will you conclude that the learner did not learn something from your class? Second is alternative assessment. This is student structured because most of the students are in control of this. So we depend on their answers. And these are mostly real life situation because they are going to create or perform a response based on their experiences or based on their personal interpretations. And again, this is a direct response or direct evidence. And in portfolio assessment, this is also student structured, and it refers to the collection of students' output, and this is a dynamic process of assessing students. The usual process is you collect, select, and reflect. Take note, you have to select. So you are not going to include everything because every output doesn't reflect your achievement. Every output doesn't reflect your effort. But sometimes a very low score is very meaningful because you can reflect a lot out of it, that you know that you could have done better. You know that you can perform better than the score that you are seeing right now. And I have here a question. Based on the three modes of assessment, which mode of assessment is the best? No? Is it traditional assessment, alternative assessment, or portfolio assessment? Please comment down your answers. Why do you consider it as best? It is considered best if assessment method is appropriate, valid, and acceptable with respect to the learning targets, and it is appropriate to the level of the learners. And assessment is considered best if it can assess authentic skills. What is this authentic skills? Authentic assessment, a special feature in all modes of assessment. So this should be embedded in all modes of assessment. So in traditional assessment, there should be authentic assessment, and in alternative assessment, there should be authentic assessment as well as in portfolio assessment. It refers to the use of methods that stimulate true to life situations. So as much as possible, it's like a replica to what we are going to experience in real life after schooling. This could be any test that reflect real life situations or alternative methods that are parallel to what we experience in real life. And we should assess students' ability to use what they've learning in tasks similar to those in the outside world, because not all the time learners will depend to the teachers. Whether we like it or not, they will become independent as time passes by. And we need to prepare them because schooling is preparation to real life. And it is very important that our assessment tasks are related to the things or tasks or jobs that they might experience after schooling or after graduation. And thank you so much for the slide media for allowing me to use your template. Thank you so much for today. I hope you learned something. Bye-bye.